Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how you doing?
I'm not going to answer that question. I'm just going to say that my emotions, there's an overwhelming result. But if you want to find out more, you're going to have to take me to court.
Well, instead of taking you to court, don't you think you could maybe save a lot of trouble and a lot of angst and several protests by just sharing how you're feeling, how you're doing right now?
There's an overwhelming result of my feelings, and as I think we've made clear in the past. And I think that we've answered that question now.
Now, I've spoken with people who weren't sure that there even was a sharing of your feelings, and now you're saying that overwhelmingly you have shared your feelings for how things are going, but you won't release the fact that you won't release a vote. You're confusing me, Tom. I'm going to ask one more time. How's it going?
I believe we've made clear. My feelings have really been expressed in an overwhelming fashion. And if you want to find out more, you're going to have to stand outside our offices. Then we're going to send the police, and then you have to take us to court.
You live too far outside of town. I just can't do it. I will just have to take your word for it that the feelings are unanimous and that you have everybody's best interest in mind when you say that. So, well, thank you, Tom, for being here as always. I'm sure you're doing fine, even though you will not confirm it. Perhaps, perhaps an open letter.
Aha! The solution to all of life's problems: an open letter. Yes.
The cause of and solution to. So yes, Tom, thank you for being happy to be here today and doing well. Especially
No, no, nobody said that. Nobody said I was happy to be here.
almost had you. So Tom, welcome to Game Week. Ohio State opens the season on Thursday at Illinois. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a good one. Can you tell me, like, have you been scouting Illinois at all?
I'm sorry. I was under the impression this was Bowling Green week, sir. I thought I'm sorry. Wow, this is awkward. I'm sorry. We have to go to Champagne. Oh man.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Tom, before the show, I was like, we'll just make it a quick show. We don't need to go an hour. And now we've gone like 5 minutes without talking about anything. So I'm going to ask you one last time. How's it going?
Um, I would say 11 parts of me are bad, but 3 parts of me are good. So you know, it's pretty overwhelming.
Overwhelmingly bad. Do you want to cancel? Are you saying you want to cancel the show?
I don't want to cancel it. I just want to not do it, but then maybe possibly do it later. But nobody said cancel. Nobody said the word cancel.
All right, that's a pretty good lead in. Let's talk about this Big Ten vote.
This
Do
what
you
now?
want to
The what?
talk? What's the vote? Um, so thanks to the lawsuit from the eight Nebraska, only eight people were wanting even any of this information, according to the Big Ten's lawyer. So basically, the way that Adam Rittenberg of ESPN has laid it out, and of course Nicole Auerbach of the Athletic, is that the Big Ten has released a vote: 11 presidents and chancellors in favor of postponing the season, 3 presidents and chancellors in favor of playing this year. Those three were the presidents from Ohio State, Iowa, and Nebraska. And so now we know it. Now it's all out there. No reason to be mad at anybody anymore because now we know the vote. We can go home. We don't have to protest anymore. Such clarity, and it only took 3 weeks.
3 weeks, multiple protests, and a court case to get just the top line results from public officials about a vote that they had to do in public. I mean, sure. I mean, yeah, but I mean, if there's anything weird about that, anything suggestive that they might be hiding something or not be particularly thrilled with this, or yeah, sure. I mean, absolutely. I think there's done. I think I speak for all of us when I say clearly there's nothing else to be digging into or looking into here. There's nothing else that they're hiding, and we're all done. We're all good. Yep.
Well, considering how difficult it was to get this little bit of information out of them, yeah, I don't even want to imagine how long it would take to get actual information, like the stuff that they don't want us to find. Is that 6 years in court? Is that uh, just red tape entanglements? Is it how long would that even take to get the stuff, the really juicy stuff that we want? But now that we know there was a vote, that kind of it dismantles a bit of the Nebraska lawsuit, because that was one of the contentions, was that there was no vote, and the Big Ten is saying, "Hey, haha, but there was." And of course, as we talked about on the morning scoop, I'm still confused as to why others were saying there wasn't when they would likely be in the know. Um, but who are we to think the Big Ten is being deceptive? Because go ahead, Tom.
No, I don't know why anyone would think that people who are unwilling to discuss the results of a vote for multiple weeks, multiple protests until they're forced by a court to reveal those, and why when their attorney said that it would be extremely damaging if information came out. I don't know why anyone would think that the Big Ten is acting like it has something to hide. I don't know where you, Tony, or where you get off suggesting that the Big Ten might be, acting like it has something to hide here.
Well, also when you actively like hide from a building, like when you hide from parents who showed up at your building, that is also hiding. So not only are they hiding things, they're hiding themselves. They're actively hiding everything. But they did give us all of what we wanted. We only wanted to know the vote. We didn't. There was, sure, people wanted to know, like, how did you come to these decisions, and what doctor studies did you use, and all of this. But as long as we got the vote, I'm sure we don't need anything else, and I'm sure all of this will now die down, just like it did after Kevin Warren's open letter explaining everything perfectly. And so I'm glad that that's finally settled. Now we can move on to each individual school's athletic department being grilled because their respective presidents voted against or for, or however they went. And those three who voted for can raise their hands in victory at their incredible loss.
Yeah, this is going to be very interesting to see how this plays out at all of these different schools, because I think Nebraska, I think is at one end of the spectrum where their head coach and their athletic director and the university president have all been very, very open about the fact that they want to play. They think they can play. They think they can play safely. They voted that way. Everyone's on the same page. That's kind of one end of the spectrum. Then you've got the schools that have, Jim Harbaugh has come out and said, yeah, he thinks they can play. He thinks that they can do it safely. James Franklin has said that. You've got a bunch of Big Ten coaches that have said, yeah, we think we can do it. The athletic directors have come out and said they think you do it. Jim Harbaugh wants to play. Ward Manuel, the Michigan athletic director, wants to play. Michigan's president voted no. So now you've got university leadership in pretty high ranking spots in kind of conflict with each other there. And Michigan's president is an epidemiologist, so he should be in a place where it should be in a better spot than just about anyone else to make an informed decision here. But also he welcomes 30,000 or whatever students, 40,000 students back to campus, and they've had a bunch of issues because, hey, guess what? College students aren't going to just social distance 24/7. That's not how it works. So even the people who are in the best possible position to make these decisions are not always making decisions that are going to work out great because, hey, the world is kind of complicated right now, and that's things are not always super clean, and decisions sometimes get made based on hey, we really need those tuition and room and board checks to clear. We're going to have some financial issues in the relatively short to medium term. So there's a bunch of stuff that these are not clean, simple, easy decisions, and I wonder how much pressure they're going to start getting at these different schools where they voted no from big donors who might, the people who are willing to fork over $250,000 a year for a luxury box at Michigan Stadium or Beaver Stadium or wherever. I can't imagine they're super thrilled with their university presidents voting to kill the season when they did. And, again, this is something we specified on Morning Scoop. This is something we've specified in this podcast a bunch of times. We're not saying it's 100% safe to play football. We're just saying it was probably too early to kill the season because you've had a bunch of schools continue to play and practice and not have major issues. So I get why people would be ticked off at decisions to kill the season at that point, and I wonder how that's going to play out with major donors and others at all of those different Big Ten schools.
I think this also helps Kevin Warren, even though I still go back to the fact, how many times, if ever, did the Big Ten presidents go against Jim Delaney? Now, Jim Delaney never had a decision like this on his hands, but I believe that whichever way Jim Delaney would have wanted to go, the presidents would have, especially with adequate proof of what is and is not possible. So I'm not ready to let Kevin Warren off on this because the operations of it have still been a mess. The communication of it has still been a mess. So there's plenty there that he is still responsible for. And in fact, and including directing the presidents on the viability of making this happen. So there's, while 11 of these presidents are terrible people, clearly, let's not raise Kevin Warren's hand as one of the good ones. There was only 3 good people involved here. That were the 3 people who wanted to play. I think we can state that unequivocally, that wanting to not play is just terrible. But no, that's not actually true, Tom. So just go ahead and clarify my lies, please.
Well, I think the area where Kevin Warren really fell short, and there have been reports that Kevin Warren was in favor of not playing and may have guided the decision in that direction. But I think the area where he really fell short was in consensus building. Because I think where you would have seen a big difference if Jim Delaney was still in charge is when the Big Ten announced that it was going conference only, that caught the other Power 5 conferences by surprise. That was, if Jim Delaney is still in charge, Jim Delaney's on the phone with Greg Sankey from the SEC and going, look, this is what we're thinking about doing. And then you build consensus and you figure out, here's what we're going to do. Here's what they're going to do. We're going to work together. We're going to figure out what works for everyone. If everyone takes this step together, then okay, then you don't have anyone who's kind of hanging out there in the wind, out further, way out over your skis, if you want to use that expression, with everyone else kind of going, what the heck are you doing? When did this decision get made? So that's one failing. And then to cancel and have this incredible disconnect with the other 3 Power 5 conferences, where the Big Ten cancels and the Pac-12 follows the Big Ten, because that's just kind of, those 2 conferences have kind of gone hand in hand for a long time. But to do it and not have that conversation with the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12, and I think our assumption, and probably a lot of people's assumptions right now, is that the Big Ten canceled and assumed that everyone else was going to sort of fall in line later that week, and then they didn't. And you saw reporting to the effect that that when the Big Ten canceled on Tuesday, there were a bunch of national reporters who said, yeah, everyone else is going to cancel by the end of the week. And that week happened and came and went, and no one canceled. And the week after that, and the week after that. And so now you're looking at, there was a game last Saturday, Central Arkansas, Austin Peay, they played. There are more games this week coming up. There's more games coming up the week after that. The SEC is scheduled to start in just a couple weeks. I mean, this is coming pretty quick, and you're getting to the point where if you get past Labor Day or so, if the SEC hasn't canceled, the SEC is probably playing, and then you're sitting on the sidelines watching 3 other of your peer uh, leagues playing, and if they can do it fine and you're not, you got a problem. And that I think is the biggest failure of leadership, is the failure to kind of build consensus on this and figure it out, because it just doesn't make sense. I don't, again, I am not an epidemiologist, I'm not a public health expert, I'm not a cardiologist. I don't know who's right and who's wrong here, but it boggles the mind that Iowa State is looking at having 40% capacity, having 25,000 fans in Jack Trice Stadium in Ames for their season opener, and an hour and a half away, it's simply unsafe for Iowa to play at all. They can't have just the players in the stadium and no one else. It's simply too unsafe. And Iowa State's gonna have 25,000. I posted this on Twitter on Monday. It's just like, I don't know who's right and who's wrong. Somebody's wrong here, and it's mind-boggling to me that the same level of leadership, conference commissioners, coaches, athletic directors at a Power Five school, 1.5 hours away in the same state, can have almost a half full stadium, and then an hour and a half away, no one can do it. And you're theoretically working with the same data, the same, everyone has this access to the same basic medical studies and the same basic medical experts. And I don't understand where the disconnect is there between those two leagues.
Soon this fall, you'll have high school teams playing in the shadow of Ohio Stadium. Once Columbus City Schools gets back up and going, and they've got those fall games. I'm imagining as soon as Kevin Warren and the Big Ten announced the cancellation, he's just refreshing Twitter, waiting for all of the other dominoes. You just refresh, and maybe it'll be a 5 p.m. news dump. Blah blah blah. That's when the SEC or maybe the Big 12 will be the first to announce it, and then everybody will go. I think it goes back to the leadership aspect where the Big Ten has been a leader all along. Like the Big Ten Network, starting that, everything that they do is kind of just leads the way. There wasn't a playoff until they finally said, "Okay, we'll do it." And I think a lot of that comes through Jim Delaney talked to a lot of people and made things happen. Whereas maybe Kevin Warren just thinks, well, as long as the Big Ten does it, everybody else will as well. And there wasn't the communication with everybody. And we've heard reports that other conferences were caught off guard when they went to just a conference only. So I think the lack of communication with the schools, with the parents, goes right in line with lack of communication with other commissioners, and maybe that's something in his year-end review that will have a needs work from his supervisors, and we'll see. Tom, anything else on the Big Ten vote before we before I interrupt you? Let me interrupt you. So I tweeted out that imagine being part of a conference where Rutgers gets the same. A vote from Rutgers means the same as a vote from Ohio State or Nebraska or Iowa, and got it. A bunch of people agreed with it, and some people didn't. I eventually deleted it because it's one of my bad habits is just being overly mean to Rutgers. And over the years I've had to delete very many Gary Nova tweets, and so I eventually, not that I don't like, it is silly that Rutgers' vote counts the same as Ohio State's in the Big Ten. Let's just be honest. But maybe it came across as a little mean, so I eventually deleted it. But Tom, for Rutgers to have the same weight as Ohio State in a vote of this magnitude, I'm saying we need the Electoral College here in the Big Ten.
That's like having a family vote, and your wife and you and 2 kids. It's like, all right, well, we're tied 2-2. Well, okay, the dog gets a vote. Like, okay, what should we do for dinner? And the dog's like, let's eat goose poop. It's like, no, that's not what. No, that's Rutgers. Rutgers just wants to go out in the yard and eat goose poop. And I mean, I don't want to be disrespectful. That is an opinion you can have. And that's I think we're all here to respect each other's experiences, and that's okay. But when you welcomed Rutgers into your home, you knew what you were getting, and that is a vote to eat goose poop for dinner. And I mean, yes, the dog did bring some cable TV households with her, um, but I think that may have this may be sort of one of the sort of resulting fallouts of that decision. I mean, at least the cable TV model hasn't changed substantially since that decision, so at least the benefits will remain in perpetuity.
True. I guess it's kind of like the parable of the frog and the scorpion, or the frog and the snake, whatever it is. It's like when the scorpion stings whomever. It's like, I'm a scorpion. What did you
It,
expect?
it's in my nature. Yes.
Exactly. This is the goose poop eating nature of Rutgers, and what did you expect? If there's goose poop, I'm gonna eat it. Now, Tom, do not cut out that sound and then create a clip from it. I beg of you, and nobody else should either.
Hey, I
Uh,
just had this great idea. Hang on.
so, so then that's that. One of the recent bits of rumor that came out over the weekend, was this odd idea to start the Big Ten season, after Thanksgiving, which would be about 6 weeks too late to be part of the college football playoffs. And I think we barely got a chance to touch on this in the last show, because it was just happening and we weren't even sure that, like, it was a real rumor as opposed to a fake rumor, you know. But I I don't like it. You hear some of the reports where maybe the coaches like it because it would give them a couple of extra games, and I can see that. There's I don't know if it's a good chance, but there's a better chance for guys like Justin Fields to stick around if you're playing in technically the fall, as opposed to playing in January. So maybe that way it's a better option than January. I don't know that it is, but I do know if they were to start late November, like midway through the SEC schedule, all you're going to be thinking about is these. You can't have these two seasons going concurrently, because you're just going to be thinking about, well, the real season is over there. You almost have to separate them entirely, so you're not thinking about one while the other is going on. And I'm wondering, like, what kind of attention would even ESPN give the Big Ten during their studio shows, or do you show what highlights do you even show? Because it's like it's a lesser season because they chose to not be part of this. So you know, if you promise me Justin Fields will stick around and we get a couple extra games or whatever, then maybe I can be convinced this is a better thing than January. But I don't know.
Well, I mean, you've got a bunch of weird unanswered questions. So if Ohio State starts playing in late November, and they beat Penn State week one, are they ranked in the AP poll along with the
Oh
teams that
gosh.
have played 10 games, 12 games already? I mean, is it, number one Clemson, 11-0, number two Alabama, 10-1, number three Ohio State, 1-0? Like, sure, I don't know. I mean, the AP has basically said if there's a spring season, they'll do a separate poll for the spring season. But if they're going on concurrently, but not going to end at the same time and not on like the same track, I mean, do they get ranked? Is there like AP poll one and AP poll two? There's just a bunch of weird stuff. It's just, this was such a weird, unforced error by the Big Ten. Like, there was no reason to do this when they did this. And now they're in this weird spot where it would make a lot more sense to try and move it up. And you've seen reports that coaches want to start playing in mid-October, and I don't know how viable that is. I mean, Brian Day talked over the summer about the fact that they needed 6 weeks of training to be ready for a season. Maybe that can be more like four to six, depending on where guys are now, because they've had some time and a lot of them are still working out, and so maybe you can get ramped up in 4 weeks. But are they going to be willing to start doing this in mid-October? If you can do it in mid-October, you start October 10th, October 17th, maybe you can kind of cram an 8-week season in, have a Big Ten championship game on December 12th or December 19th, and you can get back on schedule. I don't necessarily see that happening. I think part of the attraction maybe for people is if you do it around Thanksgiving, then students have gone home for Thanksgiving break, and then a lot of schools are doing you go home for Thanksgiving break and you don't come back until in January. So you do kind of like the extended Christmas break like Ohio University used to do. And I mean, sure, I guess. I mean, that eliminates one of the big issues, which is all the students around doing the dumb college things that dumb college kids do and creating COVID spread on campus. So, I mean, sure, I guess. At this point, I am extremely I am buried in the bargaining phase of the Kubler-Ross stages of grief here. So, whatever, man. If there's an Ohio State Michigan game this year and it's on October 17th or November 30th or December 17th or it's January 10th of 2021, sure, man, whatever. Sign me up. I will gleefully go watch an Ohio State Michigan game whenever that happens this year. I don't think that November is the best possible, the best of all the solutions. And that was something that when we were at the Ohio State parents rally at Ohio Stadium on Saturday, that some of the speakers said was yeah, I mean, November is just kind of it's just a weird time. It just doesn't really work. And, this is very much a team that has national championship aspirations. And if you have national championship aspirations, playing a season that half overlaps with the actual season, that is going to murder your national championship aspirations, because the national championship will have happened and you'll still be 2/3 of the way through your regular season. And that doesn't work.
It would be like Willie Mays Hayes waking up out of bed and running down the first baseline, but outside of the stadium. So it's he's not actually running to first. He's just doing it outside of the stadium. It's well, you're not actually trying out for the team because you're not inside the stadium. You're outside. So we don't really care about that. You have not impressed us. The AP couldn't vote for them because when do you stop? You need an AP champion after the Bulls, not week 9 of Big Ten when those things are still going on. So I don't think I don't know how you even include them with the November season. There is absolutely time for a mid-October start because players have been around campus. They've been around campus for 2 months now, and have certainly gotten enough work that everybody knows exactly where they are in terms of what to ramp up. So I think 5 weeks tops, and you'd be pretty much set. And that there's still time for that to start. And it just takes a couple of guys and gals to be yeah, sure, let's play. Maybe they'll see how Central Arkansas does, and they'll be hey, if Central Arkansas can do 2 games in 6 days, maybe we can do, something not quite as extreme.
I mean, the first results from Central Arkansas were positive. They had their game. They had another round of COVID testing on Monday, and lo and behold, 0 positives after playing football. No, it turns out 2 teams with no COVID. COVID was not created when those 2 teams played each other, which is crazy to me. As you were talking about Willie Mays Hayes, it reminded me. The 2 seasons kind of happening slightly offset. It's like the year that there were 2 big asteroid movies that were released, 2 separate studios released big asteroid movies. And then there was another year that it was there were 2 old timey magician movies, and one was The Prestige and one was The Illusionist. And you could put a gun to my head and I could not tell you which was which. But one of them, there's some kind of replication machine. And the other one, I don't know, there was something else. The Prestige, ta-da.
No, that's the same movie.
Yeah, was it the same movie?
Yeah.
Okay, well, anyway, so I guess this is the Big Ten replication machine season where then Rutgers gets dumped into the water tank underneath the stage over and over and over again. It's just they keep making infinite Rutgers and dumping them into water tanks. It's
to dream.
I mean, it's basically like every other Big Ten season. So really, I mean, it's frankly, it's starting to turn into a little bit of a conference tradition.
Ta-da! So yeah, you mentioned the Parents Weekend. Let's go ahead and talk about that. We were both there. Um, you know, there were. It was an interesting thing because you had. I was thankful for the public address system for one. That was great. But it was an interesting picture where they're just backed up into the North Rotunda of Ohio Stadium, wanting to share their feelings, be heard, without a police presence telling them to move, like in Chicago. So that must have been nice. But I, I guess I should have checked maybe to see how many of the other campuses had anything. I don't know. I know there were plans for other places, but I don't know that that actually happened. But it was what, 30, about 33, 35 minutes of speakers. I think G. Scott really stood out. He had people going, and he was talking about when the Big Ten released the schedule, wasn't that just the best schedule you've ever seen? I remember thinking it was a good schedule because the way they had the bye weeks laid out and everything was this and that. And they worked so hard on it, Tom. And then of course, yeah, there was no season. But to see, we talked to Amanda Babb afterwards, and I said, how much time are you putting in on this as the president of the football parents at Ohio State? She's like, 20 to 30 hours a week now, basically over the last few weeks to month because of Kevin Warren and the Big Ten. No big deal. Like, yeah, he may not have to go into work, but he's making other people, spend so much more time because of all of the uncertainty of the lack of communication. But I thought it was an interesting day. Got to talk to a lot of parents and just hear what they had to say because you don't necessarily think about everything they're thinking about. And we're talking to them about the late November start, talking to parents like, you know, Big Ten won't tell us nothing. And that was another thing that G. Scott said. He's like, I'm sick of the speculating. I don't want any more speculating. I just want to hear from the Big Ten. And maybe we will, even outside of the 11-3 vote.
Yeah, I came away from that presentation, the protest, very impressed with the parents. I mean, uh, Ohio State has, through the Urban Meyer and now Ryan Day years, talked about recruiting the whole family and wanting to have kids from good homes and high achieving parents and all of that. And it was a very impressive group of parents who spoke. Randy Wade had a really good speech about not taking the easy way out
Mm-hmm.
and telling Sean Wade as he was a kid, like, you can't take the easy way out. You can't quit. You can't just look for a way out. You got to do it. You got to see things through. And his point was the Big Ten kind of took the easy way out. They weren't looking for a way to do it. They were looking for a way to they're looking for a way to not do it, for a way to not have to worry about it. And they took the easy way out. And G. Scott Senior, for those who don't know, hosts a radio show in Seattle. So unsurprisingly, G. Scott Senior is pretty comfortable around a microphone and had a very powerful message as well. Some really, really, really impressive parents, very, very much in tune with each other in terms of messaging. A couple interesting notes: Mark Pantoni was there, director of player personnel for Ohio State. Kevin Wilson was also there, not Kevin Warren, Kevin Wilson, Ohio State offensive coordinator. I was surprised to see him. Not that obviously the coaching staff is not obviously in lockstep with the parents on this, and that's something that we've Amanda Babb, I talked to her on the Morning Scoop last week, and she said the same thing. Like the coaching staff, the administration has been like right there with them the whole time. So that wasn't particularly surprising to me. Just the him actually being there and being out in public with them and publicly supporting them like that. I thought that was interesting. One football-y note: I talked to Dr. Corey Teague, who is Master Teague's dad, and after all of the sort of protest-related questions, I just asked how Master was doing in terms of his recovery. He said if there was a game this week, he would be playing. His recovery is good. He's full speed, ready to go. So whenever there is Ohio State football, Master Teague will be there.
Also, getting back to Amanda Babb, somebody was asking her, so is Ryan Day coaching you at all on what to say? And she's like, no. They don't. Ohio State's not coaching any of them. They are speaking from the heart, and all she does is basically relays to Ryan Day what the parents will be doing. And they're kind of this autonomous thing where, yeah, the coaches certainly support everything they're doing, but they're not telling them what to do. So I don't want people thinking like they're an arm of the coaches or anything like that. They're their own thing. So that's what Saturday was. It's just good to catch up with parents and talk to them and uh, get their thoughts on everything that has gone down. And there were plenty of thoughts because plenty of things have gone down. Anything else from the Saturday, Tom? Before we move on.
No, I think we can. I think we can move on. We've been going. We've been going more than half an hour, and we're only 2 bullet
Yes,
points into a 6 or
I
7 bullet
know.
point show.
I know. So then Saturday night, late Saturday night, Haskell Garrett, Ohio State senior defensive tackle, was shot in the face with a bullet passing through both cheeks. He is very lucky to be alive, and even more, fortunate to be home now, released from the hospital on Monday. The story there is he was leaving a friend's house, not too far away, and came across a man and a woman fighting. He stepped in, he got shot because of it, and then basically ran to a friend's house and where police were eventually called, and then he was taken to the hospital. Uh, Police still looking for more information on for any witnesses, anything like that. I saw some people on Twitter and the internet were like, this is what happens when there isn't football. Parent players don't have enough discipline, or they normally be practicing at this time. And it's like, well, no, it was like Saturday at midnight, basically, where if anything, like he's going home at like midnight on a Saturday. That's about as tame as you can be for a, say let's 21, 22-year old college senior. And even if there was a game, if it was a noon game or a 3:30 game, this very well could have happened as well. But just unfortunate and fortunate at the very same time that he is alive and well, full recovery expected, and man, that's crazy.
Yeah, that was a very scary situation. When you heard he got shot in the face, it was like that could go a whole lot of very very bad places, and it sounds like it went. He is doing about as well as you could possibly be doing. Getting shot in the face and spending 2 nights in the hospital. But to be home now is great. Um, Brian Day issued a statement on Monday saying, on behalf of his family and this football program, we'd like to thank all of those who've been part of Haskell's treatment. We're grateful that he'll be heading home today. We'll continue to help him and his family in any way we can to expedite his recovery. So, yeah, there's no word yet on exactly how this might impact his ability to get on the field. But that's obviously not the primary concern right now. It's his physical and mental well-being after what had to be a really really scary incident.
I'm just like, how long does it take you to just revert back to normal, to calm down from that, to like where your blood is no longer just buzzing and like the electricity isn't flowing through you? Like, how long does that take when you pretty much the whole life passing before your eyes type of thing? Like that's it. This is what happens, and uh, I'm sure that happened with him, and I'm sure we'll get to talk to him about it at some point this year. And everybody will be running the story as soon as they do talk to him, because that's a story that very very few people get to tell, and it's one that he can tell now, and I guess thankfully.
Yeah, that's yeah, like I said, this is that's a story that the start of that story ends only a few different ways, and an awful lot of them are real tragic. And for this to be, he's out of the hospital a couple days later, and I mean, it sounds like he's doing reasonably okay. We have not gotten real detailed information, but to be out of the hospital already, is a pretty good sign as far as possible outcomes there could have gone.
And as secretive as Ryan Day's football program is with player health, I don't know how much we'll get from him. Although this story is a little bit different than pulled hammy or torn Achilles, so there's a little bit more actual like national interest and not just football related interest in this. So maybe we'll get more updates as we go. Tom, you were at high school football game this weekend.
I
How did
was.
that go?
It
Was it
was
nice?
delightful. It was delightful. It was. I was down at Coleraine High School in Cincinnati, watching Lakota West play Coleraine. It was that Coleraine, for if you don't know, is a Cincinnati area just like superpower. They had won 87, I think, consecutive games in their conference, and Lakota has a couple kids on their team who are going to Ohio State in the class of 2022. Offensive tackle Taker Shabola, cornerback Jair Brown, and their coach Tom Bolden had been the coach of Coleraine for like a million years, and left Coleraine in 2018 to go to Lakota. And Lakota won 10-0. It was not a thing of beauty. It looked very much like two teams who had not had as many padded practices and as many scrimmages as they would have in a normal year. So it was a little ragged. It was scoreless at halftime, scoreless late into the third quarter. But it was a dramatic game. You did not have to know, if you walked into that stadium and did not realize the stakes of the game, you probably would have picked it up pretty quickly just based on the intensity of the just around the stadium. It was a little weird. Everyone's wearing masks. That's fine. Like, it's sort of just normal life now. But it was just there were 500 people total in the stadium, including the players and the the coaches and the officials. So the stands were maybe like a third full, a quarter full, something like that. And standing on the sidelines, I was on the sidelines just shooting photos the whole game, and man, you could hear everything. You could hear everything the officials were saying to the players. You could hear everything the coaches were saying to the players. You could hear the players talking back to the coaches. You could hear the guys talking on the bench. You could hear individual parents in the stands. There was the Coleraine band down in one end zone, but they were not playing as much as they probably would have been normally because they had masks on. And the cheerleaders had masks on when they were kind of around the bench area, and then took them off when they were kind of performing. It was a little bit of a different vibe than a normal high school football game, but it was just a delight to be out and watching real live sports in person. And I get to go watch. We're going to go. You and I are both covering games this weekend as well. I cannot wait to be back out there on Friday night for another high school football game.
Yeah, me too. And all week we were looking at the weather. Just it didn't look good. It was looking like it was going to be raining all Friday, and like the rain in Columbus stopped around like 6, and everything was good. I was at Hilliard Bradley at Marysville to watch Gabe Powers, 2022 linebacker commit. Towards the then the third quarter, there was some lightning in the area, and the refs got together with the coaches, and everybody's like, "No, let's just keep going. Let's just keep playing." And so they did. It wasn't near the lightning wasn't close, but you didn't want to see like a 30-minute delay or anything like that. Everybody was masked up. The bleachers, every other bleacher had caution tape on it, so you wouldn't sit. You mentioned you could hear everything. The refs did not have any public address microphones or anything, so they would, if a clock needed to be reset, they would just yell up to the press box, and you could hear it like, "Reset the clock to 9:48."
Randy, you dingus, reset the clock.
So they might have to yell it a couple of times, but just the fact that you could yell from the field all the way up to the press box. And of course you could hear the angry parents. I'm sure the great thing about everything right now is the parents can finally be heard. The refs can hear the parents just unleash this god-awful hate on these people, the worst people in the world, the people who deserve it most, football officials with this job they want so much praise and they want so much thanks, but no, you don't deserve it. And they got the business. Boy, howdy did they get the business, and it was good to see.
I tweeted this out. I tweeted out photos of, I believe I called it the single worst call in the history of football. It was a pass. I think it was Lakota threw a pass down towards the end zone right near the end of the half. and the Coleraine defender like hit the receiver, landed on top of the receiver. I think I have a picture of the defensive back hitting the receiver, and then the ball like hitting the Coleraine defender in the back, like 3-4 seconds. It was like the most egregious pass, and it was like, no call, no, that's fine, no. And it was just, there was this moment of like, wow, that was atrocious, and people are screaming, and it was just like, wow, it's kind of fun to have people just be able to get really angry about just like dumb stuff like that. Like, I mean, yes, these are players and coaches who've been working very hard. You don't want to see a game decided in a bad call, but like in the grand scheme of things, in the year of our Lord 2020, like that's a real minor dumb thing to be super big mad about. Like, that's great. It's awesome to see people get mad about that. To see people get mad about. There was a weird sequence in the third quarter where Coleraine botched a punt snap, and Lakota got the ball at like the Coleraine 10, immediately threw an interception that got run back like 60 yards, but that got negated by a personal foul penalty. So Lakota got the ball back, and then immediately almost threw another interception and ended up settling for a field goal. And that was the first points of the game, and that was like 3 quarters into the game. It was like, and you know, the coaches, you can just hear the coaches screaming at the players, like, "What are you doing?" It was, and the quarterback's making bad throws, and someone had a terrible penalty that wiped out this huge play, and the coaches are so mad. It was like, man, it is great to just be mad about football again. That's just wonderful.
Exactly. And your game was sloppy. My game got a field goal in the closing moments of halftime to make it 3-0, and it didn't get much better after that. I think it was maybe a 17-10, 20-10 type of game. But it was fun to be out there again, and it'll be fun to be out there this weekend as well. Tom, we've got some recruiting news coming tonight as 2022 tight end Bennett Christian is set to commit. I believe he's choosing between Ohio State and Tennessee. Is that?
Yeah, he's got offers from Tennessee, Georgia Tech, Michigan State, Nebraska, Pitt. He's a 3-star tight end for 2022 from Ackworth, Georgia.
But one of their top tight end guys for sure.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you're not taking a tight end commit 2 years out. You know, this is someone, if they're taking a tight end commit, 16 months from signing day, like, yes, they are very confident that this is the guy they want. So yeah, this is our insiders are all expecting him to choose Ohio State on Tuesday night. And if he does, that decision comes down about 8:00 tonight. If he does pick the Buckeyes, we will have quite a bit of coverage of that decision pretty much immediately after that, with some probably some interviews and analysis on what to expect there.
And if he doesn't, just a bunch of sad trombone noises.
Oh man, and the Coleraine band did the Price is Right fail horn. They would just bum bum bum. They did that. They did that after opponent penalties. They did that after I think there might have been a long pass attempt that fell incomplete, and they would just break that out every once in a while. It was just like, that is just good old fashioned taunting. This is what we needed back in our lives. It's so nice to have that back, and just the normal good clean old fashioned hate. That's what we needed in our lives.
Yes.
And we have it.
Clean hate, not this crap we see on Twitter or social media. Just clean, real American hate. Of people who deserve it. The worst people in the world, refs and opponents. So, if you are a ref and you would like to rate this show, go ahead. I don't care. Your opinion doesn't mean anything to me.
It's just going to get overturned on replay anyway.
Exactly, because you were wrong, sucker. So that'll be worth watching, and we'll see how it goes. But you're right, Tom. Like, I'm sure some Buckeye fans will be like, 3-star, you're gonna ruin. We're not gonna win the ratings battle with a 3-star tight end. But when they're taking somebody this early, that means they really, really like him, and it'll be okay. Tom, will it be okay?
I suspect my expectation with Ohio State's recruiting operation is that it will probably be okay. It seems as if Mark Pantoni and Ryan Day have some idea what they're doing, and I feel it feels like it's going to work out. Probably they have. I mean, this is if you go through the recruiting class for 2021. Sam Hart, who's the tight end in that class, is one of the lowest rated recruits in that class as well, and a 3-star commit. But again, this is both of these guys are 6'5". Like they have something they're looking for, and they're not just looking for who's the highest rated tight end. Like they have a certain like that 6'5" kind of 225 kind of frame that they can you can flex out like they do with Jeremy Ruckert a lot of times. That's what they're looking for, and that's what both of those guys fit. So that's the mold they're looking for there.
Yeah, Tom, they don't go after the number one tight end in the nation. And that's why they have not won a national title since 2014. Think about that.
Pretty sure Jeremy Ruckert was the number one tight end of the nation. But you know what Jeremy Ruckert also fit? The Jeremy Ruckert mold. He very much fit the Jeremy Ruckert mold. So right. I mean, some might say he was the prototype of the Jeremy Ruckert tight end mold. But
I would say Jake Stoneburner was.
Yeah.
People said it at the time.
It's true. You know who he reminds me of? A sixth grader in Long Island. Yes.
So think about that, Tom. Did you want to, before we close it out, did you want to tell me how you're doing?
I think after consulting with counsel, I think I'm excited to be here. I think I'm happy to be here for the show, and we're not gonna cancel it. We're not gonna just stop doing the show. We're just gonna postpone it, and we'll do it again in October or November or January or maybe next September. Who's to say?
Well, I'll tell you who's to say, sucker. We already recorded the show.
Oh, so you can't son of a gun. It. Son of a gun.
How do you like that, Chief?
Right. See, you need to be in charge of the Big Ten football season. That's my takeaway here.
Thank you, Tom. That's all I've been saying. And that's all anybody I know has been saying. So we'll see if we can make that happen. I will get Nebraska's player's lawyer because as far as I know, he's the only lawyer who does sports. Is that accurate? No?
Maybe. He's the only lawyer who specializes in football law. Yes.
So I'll send him a tweet and see how that goes. So want to thank everybody for listening to the show. We appreciate it as always. If you want to rate and review the show, even if you are a referee, assuming you can even figure it out, which I bet you can't. This is being your probably young grandchild is playing this for you right now, and then we'll give you your mush for dinner, and then you will go to sleep before you won't even rate or review it because you'll be in bed by 4. You terrible person, human being, piece of crap. Anyway, Tom, did you want to add to that?
Alienating the listeners. That's not the business model I would have gone with, but
no, I'm joking. I know a lot of refs, and they're all fine people. I could even give them shout outs, but I don't want to. So thank you all for listening. Seriously, even the refs. And if the refs want to rate the show, that's fine. I welcome it. And if you want to be a vindictive person like that, go ahead. So thank you all for listening. Check out BuckeyeScoop.com where there is tons of stuff. It's been a very active weekend on the Ask the Insiders board, and now beginning it's an active week. And there's always stuff going on there. Tom, how's the morning scoop going for you?
The morning scoop is going great. I had Mr. Tony Gerdeman on Tuesday.
Ooh, fancy!
Yeah, that was big. That was a big score for me.
Can you tell me about the part where he couldn't remember that Iowa was one of the 3 teams that were in favor of the Big Ten playing football?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we'd like to have experts on the show in the morning show. So that's why we had, but we couldn't get them, so we had Gerd on instead. It was
Thank
good.
You.
That's a good show.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah. So yeah, we had let's see, Monday we had Bill Green on. Bill went up to see Brennan Vernon, who is a really, really, really premier 2023 athlete. He plays at Mentor. Bill saw him, and then Drew Aller, who's probably the top quarterback in the state for 2022. So he saw both of those guys in person. Got a pretty detailed scouting report from him on those two guys. And this week it'll be interesting. It's just with as much as stuff is changing. Normally, I kind of have the week laid out, and it's like, yeah, well, I mean, I guess we'll see at about 4 o'clock, like what the day has brought, because there's always something new. So it'll be another fun week. We'll have some additional guests on this week, and then probably Thursday or Friday we're going to have probably a little bit of a weekend of high school football preview, because last week we had people, I think, at 6 different people at 5 different games, something like that, across the state. We're going to have, I think, probably a very similar thing this weekend going, where we do not know exactly how many weeks of high school football we are going to get, so we are cramming 10 pounds of coverage into a 5-pound bag right now, and we're making sure we have seen laid eyes on every top Ohio State recruit commit, people they're chasing right now, people they may end up offering later. Make sure we've kind of gotten eyes on all of them, talked to all of them. There's going to be a lot of coverage. We still haven't produced all of the coverage from last week's games, so we'll have that all throughout the week this week as well.
Yeah, and Mick Walker was at Springfield Huber Heights Wayne, and his write-up will be coming out, may have come out overnight. But there's, tons of guys that he went and saw there that he has written up about. And so check that out. I will have a write-up on Gabe Powers here with some video highlights of his play against Hilliard Bradley. And then by the time we finally get that done, then it's probably like Friday. And, and then we do it all over again. So look for all of that, because it will be there. And thank you all for listening, and we will talk to you guys later.